Well, most of you know what a sports fan I am. And one of the things that's amazing about sports, about watching it, is seeing these great athletes make what they do look so incredibly easy. You know, you see a baseball player make a great catch, a football player making incredible moves running the ball, a basketball player make a seemingly impossible shot, and yet they seem to do it so effortlessly. They make these incredible plays and they make it look like it's the easiest thing in the world. Like they make it look like anybody could do that. Or at least they make it look that way unless you've actually tried to do it. And then you know that there are very few people who can do what they do because it's not easy at all. It's incredibly hard. It takes years and years of practice, hour after hour, day after day, week after week. It takes a lifetime of effort, really, to be able to do the things that top athletes do. It's only because they've put in all that effort that they can make it look so easy. And I bring this up because I think that sometimes we don't have enough appreciation for the miracles that Jesus did. And I don't think people did at the time either. You know, we're always told that people were amazed when Jesus did a miracle. And yet, just a little while later, often in the next paragraph, people are back to treating Jesus like he's no big deal. They're making demands on him. They're telling him what to do. They're complaining about what he has done. It's like whatever miracle Jesus did, it really just did not make any impact at all. Jesus just seemed to make doing miracles look so darned easy. Now, that's not to say that it was easy for Jesus. It's one of the many things that we really don't know, just how hard was doing miracles for Jesus. We have one instance in the 8th chapter of Luke where a woman touches Jesus' clothes and is healed, and Jesus says, "I know that power has gone out from me." So clearly it was not nothing when Jesus did a miracle. It took something out of him to do that. And there are other times too where after healing people for a while, Jesus needed to go off by himself and just rest and sort of recharge. So working miracles was clearly not as easy for Jesus as it might sometimes have looked like. And in fact, our Bible reading that we just read for today takes place right after Jesus has worked a miracle. He has just fed over 5,000 people with 5 loaves of bread and 2 fish. And you know, this is often referred to as Jesus feeding the 5,000, but what the Bible actually says is he fed 5,000 men plus women and children. So it could have easily been 10,000 people or more that Jesus fed on that day, with 5 loaves of bread and with 2 fish. And after that, Jesus sends the disciples on ahead of him in a boat. They're headed for the other side of the lake. He stays behind to pray. Again, that sounds kind of like Jesus needed a restoration time after having worked this miracle. But then after he's done, Jesus goes out to where the disciples were, and he's walking on the water to get to them. And again, Jesus just made that look so easy. Was it easy? I don't know. But Jesus made it look that way. In fact, Jesus made it look so easy that Peter says to him, "Hey, let me do that too." Jesus says, "Sure, go ahead." And Peter does it. And he can do it. And Peter's making it look easy too. But then he looks around. He sees the waves. He feels the wind. Peter starts to think about what he's actually doing. He starts to sink. And of course, Jesus reaches out and pulls Peter back up again. They get into the boat. So what's the point? Well, there's a couple of them. One of them is quite simply that we should not take the miracles of Jesus for granted. You know, we've read and heard some of these Bible stories so often, we lose the impact of them. But really think about some of the things that Jesus did. I know there are people in our congregation who are dealing with chronic health issues. And others of us have loved ones who are. Think of what it would be like to have Jesus just suddenly touch you and heal you. Think of what a miracle that actually was. Think about being in that crowd of 5,000 men plus women and children. Think about being hungry, being a long way from anywhere where you could get food. Think about what it'd be like to see Jesus there with 5 loaves of bread and 2 fish, and acting like he can feed the whole crowd with that little bit of food. And then think about seeing the disciples start handing out food and finding out Jesus actually is going to do it. He actually is going to feed that whole crowd with that little bit of food. It'd be incredible. It would be a miracle. And think about being in the boat in our Bible reading for today. You're in the boat with the disciples. You're rowing against the wind. It's nighttime. You're trying to make it to shore. All of a sudden, you look up, and there's what appears to be a human being walking on top of the water coming toward you. And then you see Peter get out of the boat, and for a little while, he's walking on top of the water too. What an incredible thing that would be to see. But here's the other point. When Jesus worked miracles, he did not always work them by himself. There were times when Jesus let other people share in the miraculous power that he had. There were times when Jesus worked through other people. When Jesus fed those 5,000 plus people, what did he do? Did he take those 5 loaves and 2 fish and turn them into 5,000 loaves in front of everybody's eyes? Start handing them out to people? No, that's not what he did. He took the 5 loaves and the 2 fish. He gave thanks to God. He gave those 5 loaves and 2 fish to his disciples. Told them to get busy feeding people. In other words, Jesus worked his miracle through them. Jesus allowed the disciples to use his power to do something that nobody would have thought they could do. In our story for today, when Peter asks Jesus to walk on the water, did Jesus say no? Did Jesus say, oh, no way, go away, only the Son of Man can do that? No. Jesus says, sure, come on out, the water's fine. Jesus allows Peter to use his power to do something that no one would have thought he could do. And so that's the other point. When Jesus was on earth, he allowed his disciples to use Jesus' power to do things that no one would have thought that they could do. And now Jesus still allows his disciples, you and me, to use Jesus' power to do things that nobody would have thought that we could do. But there's one condition. We need to trust in Jesus' power. We need to have faith. We need to believe. When Peter trusted Jesus, he was able to walk on the water. But what happened? Peter started looking around. He started thinking, what in the world am I doing? I cannot be doing this. This is impossible. This cannot be happening. Peter stopped trusting Jesus. He started thinking of all the reasons he could not do that, rather than trusting in Jesus and believing that he could. The Lord can still work miracles. The Lord still does work miracles. Sometimes the Lord works those miracles without any help, simply through the use of divine power. But a lot of times, Jesus allows his disciples, you and me, to use that divine power to do miraculous things. But just like Peter, we need to trust in Jesus' power. Because by definition, a miraculous thing is something that most people don't think is possible. So when we think of miraculous things, there will always be 25 people who will come up with 100 reasons why what we have thought of cannot possibly work. In fact, those people will say that what we've thought of is not possible. It simply cannot be done. And if we believe that, then it becomes true. If we believe that something cannot be done, then it cannot be done, at least not by us. When Peter believed he could not walk on the water, he could not walk on the water. But if we believe, as Jesus said, that all things are possible with God, then maybe what we're thinking of can be done. If we open our hearts to God's Holy Spirit, and if we trust in Jesus' divine power, and if we ask the Lord to allow us to use that divine power, then who knows? Maybe it can be done. After all, everybody knows you cannot possibly feed 5,000 people with 5 loaves of bread and 2 fish. The disciples used Jesus' power, and they did it. In fact, they made it look easy. Everybody knows that a human being cannot walk on water. But Peter used Jesus' divine power, and Peter did it. In fact, he made it look easy. What other things that everyone knows you cannot do might be done if we use Jesus' power to do them? So that's our challenge. What's your dream for this church? What could this church do if we trusted Jesus' power? Yes, I know we're a small church. I can look around here just like anybody else. I know we don't have a lot of money. But that's the point. We're not talking about what can we do using our power. We're talking about what can we do using Jesus' power. The disciples could not feed thousands of people using their own power. Peter could not walk on the water using his own power. He could only do it using Jesus' power. So think about this. Pray about this. Open your heart to God's Holy Spirit. Pray for God to show you God's will for this church. Pray for God to show you God's will for your own life. Because when we're doing God's will, the Lord allows us to use God's divine power. So pray about it. Think about it. Think about what we can do if we use the Lord's power. Because if we use the Lord's power, then just like for Peter, this church will be able to do the things that nobody thought we could do. We'll be able to do the impossible. In fact, we might just make it look easy. Amen.